Brent Anderson. This is an interview with our junior high remediation ELA teacher, dyslexia, whatever you want to call it. Okay, before I get into these questions, I have a little bit of experience with planning for kids that read below grade level and so on. My technique, which would not be taught or promoted, and I'm sure is frowned upon in every way, is I would just give the kids a small writing sample, and I would usually use some kind of eye test to determine these kids are well below reading level, or there's these problems or that problems, which, like I said, none of that would hold up in an audit or an ARD meeting, but surely that's probably not the way you do things. So having said that, how do you assess which reading skills students need to develop when it comes to like creating lessons or activities or whatever?
We use the NWEA a lot, and we also do DIBELS to assess their reading levels. So between those two things, we kind of form a baseline.
Okay. So it's kind of similar in that you kind of create a, this is about where they're at.
Right.
What about data, the data that you use to plan lessons? You also...
Well, with our dyslexia curriculum, planning lessons is really not something that I get a lot of freedom. It's pretty laid out and scripted. So once we find their abilities, then we go from that. And then we do have mastery checks that we do every few lessons. And so I use those to kind of decide if I need to go forward or move back in the program, depending on how the students perform on the mastery checks.
So I guess the most important thing is figuring out where the exact, not exact, but where the roundabout baseline
Yes.
is.
And
is that talking about like reading level as far as comprehension?
We focus mostly on reading. There is some comprehension focus, of course, but with the dyslexia program, the intent is to teach them how to read. So that's our main focus. So our DIBELS scores and the NWEA gives kind of a overview, but we really focus on reading fluency. So
I was so bad when I had some resource ELA classes when I was doing SPED, and we did a lot of sight word practice. We did a lot of sound blends, and I mean every day. And I don't know if it was helping or hurting or what, but I was fortunate that those were extremely small class settings. I mean, like 4 kids or less. How much difference does that make?
it makes a big difference in your class size. If you only have 4 children, you can really focus on what those kids need. I have 10 and 13, which is really not best practices. I would have really preferred to keep it around 6. But you do what you have to do. So, but yeah, that would be a dream class for kids.
I had 1 kid a couple of times.
Yeah, that would be nice.
We had some good times. Okay, all right, and you said you track progress over time using those checks?
Yeah, the mastery checks and the reading fluency.
What do those look like?
The mastery checks go over all of the curriculum that we've done. We have these reading cards that the kids have to read, the sound, the picture that goes with it, and then the letters, the picture, and then the sound. And it kind of cements things in their mind when they come across that reading. So we test that. We test reading words, we test spelling words, handwriting. So the mastery check has all those components on it. And that just assesses their ability to apply what we have learned in the lessons. And once I have that, I have to score it, and then I find where their weaknesses are, and then I'm able to either go back in the lessons if that's deemed necessary, which it normally isn't, or I take those weaknesses and try to put those back in the lessons if they aren't already there.
How much freedom are you able to have as far as any adjustments that need to be made? Like, are they extremely strict on this is the curriculum, these are the things that we want you to do, and even if, you know, we do these mastery checks and obviously this kid hadn't met this mark, do they want you to go back and redo whatever?
Well, I have a lot of freedom with where I am in the program, and I have to judge that myself. There's really no one that oversees that other than me. In one of my classes, I did a mastery check and the kids bombed it. Everyone bombed it. And so I went very far back in the curriculum, and this was at the beginning of the year. And they were missing so many skills that it just didn't make sense to go forward. So we had to redo a lot that they had missed the previous year, really. And when we got to that mastery check again, that paid off because they all passed the mastery check that time. So I am lucky enough to be able to adjust as I need.
So it sounds like some of the things that you're talking about are like extremely scaffolded down in terms of grade level instruction, because I know that you have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Yes.
How much collaboration, if any, is there with the actual grade level gen ed teachers, ELA teachers?
This year there has been 0. I have reached out to a few of the teachers, and next year we're going to make some changes, and I am going to be more supportive, especially not with my dyslexia class so much, but with my RTI class. I'm going to work much more closely with them and kind of be on a delayed course that they're going down, and I will kind of help them with the kids that need more support.
Well, as much as I hate to admit, and I mean, it's all about state test scores, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And these kids, even if they're several grade levels below reading, they're still going to have to take whatever their grade level is, state test eventually. Do you think that working with the grade level teachers will help, I don't want to say close the gap, but do you think it'll help, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. How much difference do you think it'll make as far as the scores on that particular test?
I don't know.
Because you know what we could do, all of these kids that you have every day, we could, you know, have a huge increase in all of their reading levels, but they could still bomb state tests.
That's exactly why I went to the teachers, because that was my concern, that I'm focusing mainly on reading fluency, and there's a lot more to go with it. While that works with the dyslexia students, with the RTI students, they need a lot more. So I am trying to form a different curriculum for next year to kind of help support them with comprehension and vocabulary, and things that, even grammar, things that I've noticed this year that they were very weak in. And so when I went to the other teachers, they were really excited that they thought that might help. So we will see next year.
We will see. Okay, so what kind of balance do you have between like phonics, fluency, comprehension, vocabulary? Does it really depend on the student, or?
Well, the curriculum focuses on phonics. We have a small amount of vocabulary that we do. We have a small amount of comprehension that we do with the dyslexia kids. That curriculum is very specific in focusing primarily on the reading fluency. So bringing other components in is something I kind of struggle with, because I think they need more of it, but that's not the dyslexia focus. It's truly reading fluency, so.
Okay. Do you have any classroom strategies that you use to build or to help build confidence in reading?
I think the biggest part of that with junior high is building a classroom environment that allows them to make mistakes. So I spent a lot of time building that community in our classrooms, where laughing at other people or making fun of other people's abilities is not the norm. And then after that, we just work on getting passages that they're comfortable reading, and then gradually increase the difficulty.
You know, that very subject matter, it just brings back all these memories from when I was in junior high, when teachers would, you read this paragraph, you read this out loud, and I just know that people were mortified.
Yes.
I could read okay, well enough to not get laughed at, but I know that there were some people in there, well, I think it probably led to a lot of behavior problems, because hey, I've always said my whole career, it's cooler to be bad than it is to be dumb. So a lot of kids will act out if you, anyway. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to skip over. All right, what about instruction differentiation? How do you differentiate instruction? Even in the classes that you have, I'm sure there are wildly vast reading levels.
There are, and that is something that I kind of struggle with, honestly, because the curriculum is so scripted and we are working on specific skills. And if someone is missing something, I'm going to have to pull that kid and work on that skill to catch them up. It typically only happens if a kid comes in from a different district or gets put in after elementary, because if they have had the program for an extended amount of time, they have most of the skills. They know most of the things that we have taught. But when a student comes in from a different school, or just is fresh in the dyslexia class in junior high, that's where I have those problems and I have to catch them up.
I don't think it's uncommon to have issues with differentiating.
Yeah.
I think that, speaking, as a teacher myself, in a perfect world, we would like for them to just be all on the same level. It's like, I only want to teach this one kind of way.
Right.
Which is not realistic, unfortunately.
No,
but I'm lucky enough to be in a class setting where they can pretty much, teaching technology, even the highest readers and the lowest readers are all about the same technology speaking.
Right.
Because of their continuous access to everything. In fact, some of them teach me things from time to time. Okay, let's talk about formative assessments. Are you able to create your own?
No, I have to use those mastery checks. I mean, I do sometimes create assessments, I guess, for maybe some specific skills, but usually those mastery checks do what I need, and so those are the assessments that I use.
Sounds the way I would want it also.
Yeah.
What about providing feedback?
One of the ways that I can provide feedback, and they kind of seem to enjoy, is on our fluency probes. I try to do them every week. They read into the computer, and I am able to listen and score their reading, and then I can give them feedback that way, and they like that because it's more private and I'm able to be really specific with them. And so,
well, that sounds like
they
it could
enjoy
be
that.
pretty immediate also.
Yeah.
In an age of instant gratification, I could see how that would appeal to students.
They like,
I read, I get results
yeah,
immediately, privately,
yeah,
without being called out.
yeah.
Okay, you may not have encountered this. How do you determine when a student is ready to exit the remediation program?
Actually, that is coming up with one of my students.
Excellent.
The perfect world says that they need to have all 5 volumes complete to exit the program. However, in reality, parents and the school doesn't necessarily agree with that. So once they have reached their grade level reading level and passed the STAR test and are doing really well without support in classes and passing grades, they are considered eligible to exit. So I try to give the parents the knowledge that they really do need all 5 volumes, and they have not finished all 5 volumes, but a lot of times when they reach 8th grade and they have not, or even 7th grade, and they haven't finished that 5th volume, they'll go ahead and exit them anyway.
Well, in my personal experience, in all of the 4 different rural school districts, I would think that would be a pretty difficult ask for even students that may read on or around grade level. Pass the STAR, and not struggle in any class. There are some students that have never received any services of any kind that struggle with that.
Right.
I would imagine that would be difficult for some.
There are very few that continue the program after all of those other things have been accomplished. And I can't blame them. I mean, they're doing really great. So I expect one of my kids to be exited at her next ARD, and she will have almost finished the program, but not quite. So I'm sure she will be successful, but the recommendation is to finish all 5.
I got you. Well, that's great. Okay, let's see. All right, what about commonly faced challenges with these reading interventions that you do? Are there some things that you encounter more frequently than others?
Do you mean as far as the students' strengths and weaknesses, or just
improvements or lack thereof? Like all of these students are on the same quote program or so. Are there some that just take to it and some that...
Yes, absolutely. There are some students that this program works really well for, and there are some that still struggle. And I am not really sure, since this is my first year, I'm not really sure what I will do next year to address that. There's one specific child that was homeschooled for a while, and he's missing a ton of prerequisite knowledge, and I feel like he should have probably started in a different classroom than this junior high one, like one that I did at the elementary, but that wasn't possible, of course. So I'm trying to just help him along as I can. Yeah, so there definitely are challenges with that.
And last thing I want to ask. I know that you talked about your collaboration or you're working with the other teachers and it not being where you want it to be right now, but do you communicate any progress or anything with the other ELA teachers, even if, I mean, I know I don't want to say in passing, but is there ever a situation where you're like, hey, you know, little Johnny has really made some improvements, some strides here or there?
Not so much at the junior high does that happen, but at the elementary that happens very often. I work with third grade and first and second as well, and their teachers are much more involved in their dyslexia classes than the junior high teachers are, for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
there have been times that the 7th grade ELA art teacher and I have discussed students and their growth, but that I find that to be more at the elementary.
Maybe that's a shift that
Probably
needs
so.
to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I thank you. We can talk again. What I want to do is I want for you to have planned a lesson, taught a lesson, and then we will have a discussion after that lesson about some of the things that you saw maybe as it pertained to what you planned, what you hoped, and then maybe something didn't work out or something could have been changed, maybe you would have done differently, or you would have left the same, or you wouldn't have changed anything.
Okay.
But so, all right.